He murdered a waiter over a tip. He beat his fiancée in their apartment.
Listen, Meadow wanted the crystal.
He sold meth to his boss's daughter. He suffocated a small dog by sitting on it while high.
How could I have ever said those things about him?
And somehow, he's the character Sopranos fans argue the hardest to defend. Not Tony, not Paulie, not Ralphie. Christopher Moltisanti. The question isn't whether Christopher was a bad person. The question is why, after 25 years, we're still making excuses for him. Here's something strange about the Sopranos fandom. Go to any forum, any thread, any comment section. Ask people to name the show's worst character, and you'll get the usual suspects. Livia, the poisonous mother, Ralphie, the sadist, Phil Leotardo, the grudge holder, Richie Aprile, Jr., Tony himself when people are feeling brave. But Christopher gets a pass.
So hard not to think of Christopher as a child, isn't it?
Christopher gets sympathy. Christopher gets essay-length defenses written about his tragic arc and his artistic sensibility and his addiction struggles. And look, I understand the instinct. Michael Imperioli's performance is one of the greatest in television history.
I'm sorry, T. For what?
The writers gave Christopher more interior life than almost anyone on the show. We watched him grow up. We watched him try. We watched him fail. But here's the uncomfortable truth the fandom keeps dancing around. When you actually tally the receipts, when you list what Christopher did, not what Christopher felt, he might be the single worst human being on a show full of murderers. And the reason we forgive him tells us something profound about how television teaches us to sympathize with evil. Let's do something the fandom rarely does. Let's just list what Christopher actually did across the series. He beats Adriana, not once, repeatedly. He chokes her after a car accident, an accident she was in with his boss, trying to protect him. He steals money from her purse. He calls her worthless.
You motherfucker!
He shoots a bakery clerk in the foot for taking too long with his order. He shoots a civilian over bread. He throws a brick at a waiter's head, killing him because the waiter dared to mention a tip. A tip Christopher refused to leave. He murders JT Dolan, his sponsor, his friend, the one person in his life trying to help him get sober. He kills him because JT called him out for acting like a thug. That's it. That's the reason.
That's what I was thinking, right? I was trying to say something positive because she's your friend.
He tries to recruit a federal agent into a threesome with his own fiancée. When Adriana objects, he tells her, and I'm quoting here, that he was trying to say something positive because she's your friend. And then there's the moment that should end any debate. Christopher and Adriana are about to flee into witness protection, a fresh start, a real life. He pulls into a gas station. He sees a tired, working-class family in a beat-up car, kids, groceries, the ordinary grind of being a schnook. And in that instant, Christopher makes a choice. He drives Adriana to her death, because the alternative, a normal life, is a fate worse than murdering the woman he supposedly loves. That's not tragedy. That's not complexity. That's a man choosing to stay a monster because the monster gets better parking. So why does the fandom keep inventing reasons to love him? Here's the first answer, and it's the one David Chase wanted us to sit with. Christopher is the only made man on the show who openly wants something else.
Where are the fucking choruses? All your songs.
He wants to be a screenwriter. He wants to be an artist. He rents Godfather tapes. He takes meetings with Jon Favreau. He asks, out loud, the question every one of these men should be asking. Where's my arc?
Where's my arc?
That question alone makes him relatable in a way Paulie and Silvio could never be. Because it's a question about meaning, about purpose, about whether your life is going somewhere. And the show? This is the key part. The show deliberately spends more time inside Christopher's head than almost anyone except Tony. We see his addiction. We see his shame.
Thanks, my name's JT. I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
We see his sponsor meetings. We see him cry. We see him fail. And television has a rule, an ancient, ironclad rule. The more time we spend inside a character's head, the more we forgive them. It's not a moral calculation. It's a biological one. Proximity creates sympathy. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a person you actually know and a character you've watched suffer for 7 seasons. This is the trick The Sopranos pulls on all of us, and Christopher is the purest version of it.
Christopher, we're here to talk about your drug problem.
Because when you strip away the interiority, When you just look at the actions, he's indefensible, drug-addicted, civilian-murdering narcissist who kills his own sponsor and sells out the love of his life to avoid eating ketchup and egg noodles in a trailer park. But we don't remember him that way. We remember him crying in Tony's car. We remember "Where's my arc?" We remember the kid who just wanted to matter. And that gap, the gap between who Christopher is and how we feel about him, that's not a flaw in the show. That's the entire point of the show. Now let's go back to that gas station, because I think it's the most misunderstood scene in the entire series. People still argue about what Christopher was really thinking when he looked at that family. Some say he was mourning the fact that Adriana couldn't have children. Some say he was repulsed by the poverty. Some say it was both. But here's what I think. I think Christopher was looking at Henry Hill. Remember the ending of Goodfellas? Henry in witness protection, complaining that he ordered spaghetti and got egg noodles and ketchup? I get to live the rest of my life like a schnook. That monologue is the ghost haunting every minute of The Sopranos. And in that gas station, Christopher sees it, clear as day. He sees his future. The cheap car, the tired wife, the screaming kids, the egg noodles, the normal.
There was a time in my life when being with the Tony Soprano crew was all I ever dreamed of.
And for Christopher, for a man who has built his entire identity on being special, on being made, on being connected, on being someone, that future isn't a safe haven. It's death. Worse than death. It's irrelevance. So he chooses. He chooses the life.
T was right.
He chooses the mob. He chooses to be Christopher Moltisanti, captain, made man, shot caller. Even if the cost is the woman carrying his soul in a borrowed handbag. Here's the quotable moment. Write this down. Christopher Moltisanti didn't kill Adriana because he was evil. He killed her because he couldn't stand the thought of being ordinary. And that's somehow worse. Because evil, at least, has conviction. But vanity? Vanity kills the people who love you, so you don't have to eat at Denny's. So where does that leave us? Christopher Moltisanti is not a tragic hero. He is not a misunderstood artist. He is not a victim of his upbringing, or his uncle, or his addictions, or his environment. Christopher Moltisanti is what The Sopranos was always about. He is the thesis of the entire show, distilled into one skinny, sweating, slicked back failure of a man. Because David Chase didn't make a show about noble gangsters fallen from grace. He didn't make a show about Sicilian honor corrupted by America. He made a show about lazy, self-serving suburban men who chose to be monsters because working for a living was beneath them. Men who dressed up petty theft and cold-blooded murder as tradition. Men who used the word family to justify destroying every actual family they touched. Christopher is that thesis in its purest form.
My only dream is that we have a happy life together.
He had a girlfriend who loved him, a sponsor who believed in him, a talent, maybe real, maybe not, for writing, a dozen exits from the life.
Relief?
And at every single one, he chose the Bing. He chose the envelope. He chose the nose powder and the leather jacket and the right to be called made. And when the bill finally came due, when Tony pinched his nose shut in that overturned SUV, the show wasn't asking us to mourn him. The show was asking us to notice that we'd been mourning him for 7 seasons already, and to ask ourselves why. That's the real trick. That's the real Sopranos. Not the question of whether Tony's a good guy. We knew the answer to that by season 1.
Obviously, he was violent as an adult.
The real question is whether we are. Whether we'd rather watch a charming monster than a boring saint. Whether we'd rather feel close to something evil than feel nothing at all. Christopher Moltisanti is every viewer who ever rooted for the bad guy. And when you understand that, when it really lands, the whole show cracks open. Christopher Moltisanti was not the worst person on The Sopranos because he killed the most people. He was the worst because he had the most chances and wasted every single one. So here's my question for you. If you're honest, if you're really honest, did you feel bad when Tony killed him? And why? Drop your answer in the comments and tell me the exact moment you decided Christopher was either a victim or a villain. I read every reply. Thanks.